This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Hello, welcome to the Research Talks podcast here on Stockbox with Alan Green. Following the Resourcing Tomorrow event, where indeed, Alan, you were my correspondent, weren't you? Or you were a Stockbox correspondent, colleague, whatever you want to call it. We were broadcasting live from the show, and we went to the floor with you a couple of times for Cornish Lithium niche minerals. I thought it went very well, actually. It was came across very well. Do you think?
Yes, it was a great show, Mark, and I certainly enjoyed it. I mean, I've been to these events, for a number of years, and certainly it was interesting just seeing the dynamic at the show. As you expect with a 3-day show, you've got a really busy Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I didn't go yesterday because I've been before. And I know it always quiets down on the last day, so everyone gets done what they need to do the first few days. But certainly, obviously, we've spoken about ECR on many occasions. But Nick and Mike were there on the stand, and with the Minds of Money format or the Resourcing Tomorrow format, you book appointments to see the companies as you walk around, and Mike and Nick were chock full the whole time, so you literally had to book to see them. But I sat down in the booth, as you know, and you sort of relayed directly from your control area down to me there, and chatted to Nick, and both he and Mike were really enthused by the upcoming opportunities, and they hastened to emphasize their alignment with investors through the salary sacrifice scheme, and of course the fact that they are taking stock with other investors. So if the stock goes up, great, they make money. If it doesn't, they won't, and that's great. And I think more companies should be looking at that and taking a leaf out of their book. And of course, this morning ACR has announced the salary sacrifice scheme confirmation, the TVR, that's the total voting rights from all the stock now in, and 4 directors have had their shares issued, which is great. And of course, that we'll see a few rollouts of this going forward. But of course, I think all eyes to next week, where the drilling team are at Creswick. We're going to get more news on that probably next week. So really looking forward to that. But I mean, I think what's come out of the show for ECR is they've had a lot of very valuable and fruitful conversations with investors, and also some of the much bigger gold and mining investors too. And that for me is very telling. I know David Burton was on the stand with ECR, and he spoke to them and said B2 Gold Corporation had come down and had a chat, and Nick said, well, yeah, we'd actually arranged this prior to the show, but nonetheless, when you're having conversations like that, it's a very good barometer of the quality of the projects that the company has and the assets the company has. So yeah, really looking forward to the next few months. What we're going to see from the company.
Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, of course, I sat down with Mike as well. First time meeting, well, both Mike and Nick there. And yes, as you say, they want to get back in drilling, don't they, as soon as they can. So, and hopefully, as you say, see some news on that in fairly short order. What was the themes you picked up on, Alan, then, from the show? I mean, I feel it's the general vibe is better than a year ago. We've still got a long way to go, I think, but the general vibe was a bit more bullish than last year. But certainly the themes that people were talking about, the hot commodities, let's say, I picked up on was uranium and gold. I mean, similar vibe from you, would you say?
Very much so. Uranium, gold, and of course lithium too. Lithium is key at the moment. It's driving the clean tech revolution, and of course it's key for the lithium batteries in electric vehicles, and this is where the big developments are being made. But I was speaking with James Knowles and Mark Sale on the First Class Metal stand, and of course we were talking about battery technology and lithium battery technology is current. We're going to be moving to the next generation of batteries where the concentration of lithium and the concentration of the battery components will grow. So when you charge that car, A, it'll be quicker to charge, and B, you'll get, say, 300 to 400 miles out of a charge, and that then brings it really into the real world, I think, for traveling distance, particularly in the UK, where we're quite a small country comparatively speaking. But that was really exciting, and there was a real key vibe. But I think underlying it all, every stand I visited where companies had an interest in gold, they were just looking at the gold price, and the gold price is just ticking up. So that's very telling in current markets, and I think it's going to be key going forward. And of course, with the likes of B2 Gold Corp wandering around, that's a big company. We've got that really sort of tells you all you need to know.
Indeed. Well, yeah, gold was definitely the theme. Everyone was talking about the price of gold, and Frank Justra, the big, very popular man in particularly the gold investing space, did his keynote speech all about the future of gold and where he sees that going. He's very bullish. I managed to get a few words from him. That is over on our YouTube channel and on Twitter, but it's probably easier to search for it and find it there on the Stockbox YouTube channel. Really pleased I managed to grab him, and he gave a lot of confidence about the future for gold there. And you talk about first-class metals there, Alan. Well, they've got lithium and gold, haven't they? And I think so they're kind of quite well positioned in that sense. And Mark Sale, already on 4 targets. That's what he wanted, wasn't it? I think 4 of the properties, and they're going to be drilling one fairly soon. He's not announced officially which one it's going to be, but I'm definitely picking up that it's probably going to be the lithium one, the zigzag one. He was showing. Well, he always has rocks with him, doesn't he? But the proudest rock was
more rocks than any other stand.
Yeah, exactly, more rocks than any other stand. That's very true. I mean, and I think he even had an XRF, didn't he? I didn't actually see him use it, but I think he had an XRF on his stand as well.
He did, yeah. But it was, of course, on Tuesday, the first day of the show, First Class Metals announced the high-grade lithium samples that they got back from the Zigzag project in Ontario, and of course, the channel results were identifying 2.36% lithium over 5.5 meters. And as Mark said, you're literally going around and picking these pegmatites up from the ground. And there's a very telling. If you look at that announcement, there's a great image, where the grab samples were taken from, and it just shows the extent of the area. But also the fact is that there are so many other projects around, battery metals projects already underway with mineral resource estimates against them. So this is a highly productive area. So I know Mark and James are really excited about this. And of course, you've got the Sunbeam gold mine as well, which is an historic gold mine. They're developing that. There's now a planning permission come through from the indigenous population for the ESSA and McKellar projects, and a lot of progress, and the team are on target. That's not yet been reflected in the share price, but that is just the market. Those are just the markets that we're in at the moment, and I think we all expect a turnaround. And indeed, on the subject of gold, of course, Darren Hazelwood and
Darren
Boyer on the Panther Metals stand. Chatting to Darren and Leanne with the Abonga project. That's the territory the company owns, covers an entire greenstone system, so they own the whole damn thing, and hugely excited about that. And I know, along with Nick Tulloch and the guys at ECR, they were having conversations with some of the big players. I believe Darren's also been having similar conversations. Again, not reflected in any way in the Panther Metals share price, which is baffling, really. But it's just the market we're in at the moment. That valuation gap will be addressed at some point, and I guess when it is addressed, it'll be addressed quite dramatically. But of course, Panther has the interests. They own 36% of Panther Australia, and of course, Panther Metals Australia have the Coglia project, which is nickel and cobalt. The Marolio and Mikado projects, that's gold and two gold assets in Northern Territories. And of course, back to Canada, the Dotted Lake project, Manitou Lake, and Big Bear project too. So an awful lot to go at, and at some point, I'm sure I know Bonga is particularly exciting, and Leanne and Darren were getting quite animated when they were talking about that. But of course, we're going to see a lot more news flow from there in the coming months. So we wish them all the best.
Indeed, really nice to meet Leanne as well. Very. Yeah, smart lady. Certainly gets
very smart lady.
Yes, yeah. Indeed, and a very nice lady to chat to. She, very excited about the potential for Abonga there. I don't think she's so confident on camera, but I got a few words from her, and I said, you're building the next VMS camp in Ontario. How you really confident this is going to happen? She just said, yes, absolutely. So sort of a very sort of direct answer there. But they're of course drilling as well at the moment, as you say, Manitou Lake. So there's some news to come out of there very soon, possibly even as soon as next week that drilling program concludes, and they can hopefully get some assay results out perhaps before Christmas. But they were very busy. Darren told me this is the best event he's been to, and he said the people he talks to, they get it. He can tell that by the questions that they're asking, and I know he was pretty much packed. I tried to grab him a few times, and he was always prioritising other meetings, understandably. And even at the end of the day, when yesterday when I was leaving, I was kind of waiting around for him just to say goodbye, and people came up to the stand and said, "Oh, we really want to see Darren and Leanne," and so I had to give Darren a quick call and say, "Does people want to see you, Darren?" And he sort of hurried back from wherever he was to continue meetings. So he, I think, was hoping to get away earlier on the Thursday, but he certainly was still very much in meetings at 4:00 when I actually left. So, yeah, clearly a lot of interest there in what Panther Metals are doing as well, which is great to see because, of course, you interview Darren a fair bit and he's on Stockbox a fair bit as well. So it's nice to keep following the same story there. Just shifting the theme slightly for a moment over to uranium. Of course, that's another big theme, given the uranium price that's been performing very well, very hot recently. I think there was from memory, I think there was a couple of uranium companies there. One I'd never heard of before, but certainly Forum Energy Metals were there, who we interview a lot over on Stockbox. And actually, the week before Resourcing Tomorrow, I was invited to a lunch in the city with Rick Mazer, the president and CEO, and Rebecca Hunter, the VP of exploration there, and they presented to a packed room of some serious investors. Because the great thing about North American stocks and of course Australian stocks is they can be open when they're raising money. They announce that they're raising money. In Australia, sometimes they suspend, and it's very open that they're raising a lot of money to do X with. Whereas in London, it tends to be, it's done overnight or it's done over a weekend. You get a call from your broker, then it's announced the next day, and then existing shareholders are annoyed they didn't get called. So I do actually think their system is better. But they're looking to raise, well, they've almost got it, 9 million for the next field season. They've got a very significant shareholder. He wouldn't actually disclose the name of this particular. I think it's a house. Actually, it's a serious player in the space, and I think
family office.
Yeah, like a family office. Yeah, and I think they've taken about 20% of the company from memory. I'd have to. No, actually, I think it's 29. That's right. Because that's right. Yes, because In London, it's 3% you have to declare, isn't it? Whereas in North America, it's 30%. So they've taken 29%. But he won't disclose who it is. Understand it. Well, obviously, they don't want to be known. That's why they've taken 29%. But they've got serious backing there. They've got a significant discovery in the Thielan Basin, which is, as Rebecca describes it, non-conformity type uranium deposits. And if you don't understand what they are, there's plenty of interviews and features over on Stockbox there with Rebecca really explaining what they are. But those are the ones you want to go for. It's really high grade, dense deposits. And it's in the same area as Saskatchewan. It's just north of Saskatchewan. So it's in the prolific area for uranium deposits. And they're going to be doing infill drilling, proving up a bit more of a resource. Rick says probably, take to 2025, so a couple, next year and the year after's field season to get to an official sort of 43-101 statement, if you like, on resource. But what they've got there is a very significant area. I think in the past it's had, $50 million spent on it by Cameco. So they've got $50 million worth of data there, and Cameco didn't continue it due to uranium prices, effectively. So they've got an awful lot of data there. For Cameco to spend that much money, they wouldn't do that lightly. So there's clearly a lot of prospectivity, not even prospectivity, a lot of confidence in the deposit that is potentially there. At the moment, you've got Orano Uranium. That's one of the biggest uranium mining, almost a leading uranium miner really in the world. There have got the land just next to they've got the land just next to where Forum are, where they've got, I think, around 133 million pounds at their Kigavik uranium deposit, and Forum has basically pegged the land all around it. So, they're really in a very prolific area here for what they call these unconformity, very high-grade uranium deposits. Rick actually said, I'm a land pegger, I'm a businessman. I go and peg land and I look to prove it up and move it on. And Rebecca's the one who takes on the actual proving up, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job there in pegging all that ground. One of the perhaps small risks is they are in a very hostile environment. They can only get access probably 6 months of the year. It's tundra. It's very hostile, but they're going to be building a camp. They had a temporary one this year, and next year they're going to be having a permanent camp up there. So I think the next 2 years with Forum, certainly given the uranium price as well, and I think the market cap is only 30 million Canadian. Yeah. So, there's a lot of upside potential to come from Forum. So it was great to meet their UK team there. If you're looking for uranium plays, yes, it is listed on the North American exchanges there on the TSXV, but there are ways to get access to those exchanges because there aren't many uranium plays. The only other one I can think of is Power Metal Resources in the UK, but it's obviously that's very early stage. They have got land. Say again.
They have a uranium IPO, which is
indeed that's the uranium IPO UEE that's upcoming. Yeah,
yes,
indeed.
That's on its way.
Yeah.
Just interesting on the theme of uranium, and also with a bearing on copper too. The chairman of Aquis-listed VVV Resources came along to the show, Jim Williams. That they didn't have a stand there, but Jim basically came into London to meet a few people, and I'd set up a few meetings as well. We had lunch on Wednesday with a company that also have interests in Austria, and of course VVV Resources now own the Mitterberg copper project, and the Mitterberg copper project is an area in the Eastern Alps. It's about 90 square kilometers, 198 contiguous exploration licenses over this area. It's about 60 kilometers south of Salzburg as well. But just really interesting to sort of chat with the guys there at lunch. I should add there was also a Canadian billionaire at the table and a fund manager that I had brought along to the lunch. So it was very interesting to find out, firstly, the attitude of the Austrian government to mining. Of course, it's a clean country. There's a lot of resistance to mining, and there are lots of historical mining works in the territory called Mitterberg. But also there is a lot of uranium there in the mountains too. And of course, the Austrian government currently has the moratorium on uranium, so they control it. So if your project contains uranium, then it's owned by the government. But due to global warming, due to the fact that there's melting snow and a lot of the areas now are far more accessible than they were, of course, the tourist industry revenues are being threatened. So the Austrian government are revisiting, looking at mining, developing mining projects, approval for mining projects. So this could lead on to a whole new lease of life for these projects. And indeed, it puts VVV at quite an interesting juncture. And I know Jim basically was up for 48 hours and he was back-to-back meetings. So I only got to see him and speak with him for that lunch, and he was off. So that's an interesting play, and I think we'll want to watch for the future.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. It's always interesting to find these other companies at these events that perhaps don't have a stand, but they're around there, and you jump in and you kind of meet them, or perhaps by chance or what have you, and you can have some really interesting conversations there. Another big thing I picked up on the theme of this year was the presence of governments at this
Yes,
event.
yeah,
I mean, the Minds of Money Connect earlier in the year, there was someone there from the US government, but this year there was actually a US delegation there, and I can't remember the name of the chap, but he's definitely the equivalent, a senator, really, I suppose, equivalent of an MP. A minister in the UK, Minister for Mines, I suppose, was there doing a keynote speech. I did try to get a few words with him, but I wasn't able to do that. But he was there. Someone from the European Union, responsible for critical minerals, was there. The Ontario Minister for Mines was there, very keen to attract investment into Ontario. There's lots of government grants there that are available, and tax incentives for companies or investors looking to get exposure to some of these mining projects. And there was lots of smaller sort of delegations there as well, wasn't there? I think the Saudis were there. They were part of the Future Minerals Forum. So there were lots of governments, and the UK was there as well. The UK Minister for Mines was there, and the Department for Business and Trade was there, working in partnership with their colleagues in Asia. So, I mean, big government presence there, which I think speaks a lot, and that actually brings on quite nicely into Golden Metal Resources. Oliver Friesen didn't have a stand, but he was at the show, and I think that was the best interview I've ever done with him. He came across extremely relaxed and very excited about the future. I mean, of course, their big one is the tungsten project at Pilot Mountain, but he was talking very bullish about Garfield as well. Of course, their gold play also. And I mean, if they manage to secure some funding from the US government there to actually go and get drilling on tungsten and Pilot Mountain, that would be an awesome win. Non-dilutive government-backed funding to go away and drill. So, yeah, I think Golden Metal Resources, they've only been listed 6 months, in quite a strong position. He's definitely making the right moves.
Well, I think also Oliver and the team there they hit the ground running, as did First Class Metals when they came to market last year. And of course, it's all about developing the assets and delivering news flow. And he's done that in spades. He really has. Of course, they have an MOU signed with Oxford Sigma. That's a nuclear fusion company for the tungsten project, and of course, they also now have the Kibby Basin lithium project too, which is after identifying a significant conductor of the project. They've also, since coming to market, been admitted to trading on the OTCQB market. So, of course, with their portfolio of US focused projects, US investors can get involved that way. And as you said just now, Mark, the Garfield project that's really come on, and I know Oliver, when I interviewed Oliver earlier this year, he said that was a project they thought was really going to sort of creep up and surprise them, and certainly it has done. They've identified porphyry and skarn style mineralization, and they're in the process of conducting follow-up with further mapping and prospecting, and the results from that, I think, are due in the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot of news to come from Oliver and the team, hopefully before Christmas.
Indeed. And Cornish Lithium as well, Alan. We haven't really spoken about lithium, but I know you interviewed the guy from Cornish Lithium. What's your take on that?
Well, that's really interesting, Mark, because you mentioned the Minister for Mines, the UK Minister for Mines, was there at the show, and of course, there's a huge amount of interest in what's happening in the UK. And I spoke to Neil Elliott. He's the head of corporate development, and it's a private company at the moment, so they're not subject to the vagaries and, of course, the pressure in the market that the listed companies are. So. But they have a strategy around this. And of course, they've just raised a huge amount of money, some $60 million, including 24 million pounds sterling from the UK Infrastructure Bank. And they raised a further £6 million from retail investors through Crowdcube. So the company's fully funded now all the way through to the middle of 2025. And those funds are being used to develop the Trilith processing site and also geothermal waters projects which are around the area. And I know Neil said, I was asking him about Neil and he said there's an awful lot going to be happening Q1 next year. But in terms of their strategy, they're looking to do the hard yards, because with exploration and development, of course, you might take a step forward and then you encounter a problem and take a step back. And of course, in the markets we're in at the moment, those steps back are being disproportionately punished by the markets, investors pulling the money out or whatever. And of course, with a private company, that simply doesn't happen. So their strategy is to get over these issues, deal with the problems that will be encountered on the way. And I think when they come to market, they'll be in a position where it should be, insert a caveat, it should be fairly plain sailing. But with that amount of money raised, it gives you an indication of the size of the company. And of course, there are other companies in Cornwall too. We spoke to a guy called Marcus Cheney at Meraki Mining, which is also based down in St Columb in Cornwall, and they have projects coming to market too. So an awful lot of interest in the UK, particularly in Cornwall at present.
Talking about plain sailing, or perhaps not for the time being. Of course, I bumped into the very famous George Roach.
Yes.
I can't believe that. I was signing off on the live stream and I mentioned that George Roach was in the building, but I hadn't met him. I was literally about to end the stream, and who walks around the corner? Our friend George Roach, photo bombing there. But I got a good 25 minutes really Q&A with him. Mostly, well, all of them were shareholder questions really that have been sent to me. And yeah, well, let's see. They've missed a few deadlines now, but yeah, the next one is set for sort of Q1 or February. He's saying he's confident. He's saying he's taking it, the operation side of it. That's his main focus now. I said to him, I don't want to be having the same conversation again in a couple of months, George. So I hope we're not, because of course, again, it's a big lithium play, isn't it? But but very advanced. They're just trying to get the production all streamlined and sorted. But I think that morning when he talked about that grade that they'd had from the on-site lab, 5.7%. That's practically 6% SC6.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They just need to get that actually going on mass. Let's say through the plant. But there's always going to be these sort of teething problems. That's why there are DFS routes in place generally. Obviously, PREM have fast-tracked things, but when you're putting in a production line, if you go in without doing all the full studies and taking a lot of time to go in and do all the engineering, you're going to have bottlenecks, aren't you? That's where the phrase comes from. So it's going to be a bit of teething problems, but yeah, they've got another deadline set. So yeah, I'm rooting for PREM because, of course, I do like talking to George. A very charismatic chap, and of course, it's got a very big following. I think probably PREM and Greatland Gold are probably the biggest followings on the UK markets there. So it was great to see George there. Not seen him since I was in Zimbabwe. He did invite us back, but I said I'm not going unless you are in production. So yeah, it remains to be seen there. But yeah, nice to see him.
It's an interesting comparison, isn't it, Mark? Because they have George and encountering the pre-production problems that are quite normal with a project of that scale, and of course you're going to be producing, then you're not, then you are, then you're not, and it's just what happens. There's a long and protracted process to go through before you actually come to production, and of course, as a listed company, that's reflected in the share price, and of course, pressure from investors, pressure from everything else. The way Cornish Lithium are doing it, of course, as a private company, means they have none of that. I mean, they still have investors who will be asking questions, but there's no fluctuating share price to, if you like, worry people or create downward pressure, say from people selling or short selling in the market. There's none of that. So I think the strategy in the current market is good. But equally, Neil did say that he said to me that had the markets not been where they are, they may have listed earlier. But it's just obviously they're managing their expectations and investor expectations, but it certainly looks as though the Trellis processing site and the projects there in Cornwall are going to pay off handsomely in the coming year.
Yes, indeed, and of course they're pre-IPO, aren't they? At the moment, there was a couple of pre-IPOs that I spoke to. It's always nice to get pre-IPOs. You can. Well, it was Did he do crowdfunding as well? Didn't he? Did he say
they raised £6 million on Crowdcube, but also just to sort of, as an aside, I attended prior to coming to Minds and Money on Tuesday. I attended the Aquis forum, company forum, and I saw a few presentations. But I also spoke with, or I didn't speak to it, but I listened to a presentation with Joanne Hart, who's the small cap editor in the Daily Mail. And she said in the presentation that they are now getting more requests to feature private companies in the Mail on Sunday Tips than ever before. So it's kind of indicative of where the market is. And I think a lot of companies are seeing the opportunity to perhaps remain private, maybe raise through funds. I mean, the UK Infrastructure Bank has stuck £24 million into the Cornish Lithium project. I mean, that's, if that doesn't tell you how good it is, nothing will. And then on the back of that, of course, Crowdcube. So this may well be the way companies progress as they develop their projects in the coming year. And then obviously, as the market changes, they'll decide to IPO, or perhaps there'll be a trade sale or whatever, because I can't imagine Cornish Lithium haven't already caught the attention of the likes of, say, Rio Tinto or Fortescue Metals or Vale or whoever. A project of this scale is going to be of interest to the majors without a doubt.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's nice to get these up pre-IPOs, start thinking about them now. And then as they approach the IPO, you're already ahead of the game if you've researched them and followed them a little bit, and they've helped tell their story. And then why not get involved on the IPO if you feel it's a good story? So it's always nice to get a bit of a heads up, so to speak, on a company that's coming to market or plans to come to market. But I thought, generally it was a good event. It's tiring for everyone involved, but a good event. It was well attended. There was lots of media partners that I met. The roast guys, the Sunday roast guys, for the first time. I met David Burton from TMS for the first time. Sarah Lowther was there. There was lots of familiar faces there. I think it was very well attended. So, as I say, let's see what it's like in a year's time. Let's see what 2020. It's what I said in my little video at the end. But we'll see what 2024 brings for all the investors in the resourcing and exploration space, but hopefully it's brighter than it has been for the last few years.
Let's hope so, Mark. I'm sure it will be.
Thank you, Alan, and we'll catch up again next week.
Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.